Welcome everyone to another retro review. For this project I was in the spirit for a nice and scary survival horror game, and two titles popped into my head. One was Resident Evil, with whom I'm already very familiar with.
Don't open that door!
The game is also well represented here on YouTube, and I'm not sure what else I could contribute that hasn't already been said. So we may look into it at another time. Regarding my second choice, well, you are staring at it. It's Alone in the Dark from 1992. This game is a bit more obscure and less widespread than Capcom's Freak Show. Many people have probably already heard about the series and might even have glanced at some pictures of the first installment, but let's be honest. How many of you have actually finished it? Well, I haven't. Therefore, it is high time to pay a visit to the grandfather of survival horror.
King! Can I have your autograph?
Quite like in Resident Evil, something that I will probably say a lot here, we have to make an impracticable choice right in the beginning between our two heroes, Edward Carnby and Emily Hartwood. Carnby is a private eye with money problems who is hired by an antique collector to look for valuable rarities in the abandoned Derceto estate. The former owner of the house, Jeremy Hartwood, hanged himself for unknown reasons. Our second protagonist, Emily Hartwood, is, as the name suggests, the niece of the deceased and sets out to solve the mysterious circumstances of her uncle's suicide. There isn't much more going on here. You won't find any cutscenes. The game is survival horror with gameplay only. The character selection is also purely cosmetic. The experience and the ending remains the same, which means it is just a waste of time to play through it twice, if you ask me. In Derceto, we are dealing with all sorts of horror cliches, from simple zombies and werewolves to knight armors that have come to life, poltergeists, and whatever the fuck this is. Most of the game is strongly reminiscent of the Spencer Mansion with Chris and Jill. Derceto also offers many corridors and hidden rooms to uncover. There's a bit of variety towards the end when you go underground. The game suddenly turns into an Indiana Jones adventure as you march through caves, escape giant snakes, jump onto stone pillars, and even explore dark catacombs. Well, at least the house isn't blowing up in the end. While there are no dialogues, you will find plenty of books that you can pick up and read. To my surprise, these are fully voiced, overacting included, and give you some background information about what is going on. But I found it quite exciting and atmospheric when I got the chance to listen to some spooky horror stories.
His body was twisted. He had webbed. His fingernails were torn and bloody from scrabbling at the floor. Dr. Gray concluded that death had been due to a heart attack. It was Waits, who sometime later was informed that my poor father had in fact bitten off his tongue and choked on his own blood.
On paper, Alone in the Dark plays quite simply. Besides the arrow keys, there is also the spacebar to carry out various actions. However, the implementation has some room for improvement. Like Resident Evil, you move your character with tank controls, but even more primitive. Let's start with the running. Instead of having a dedicated button for that, you must press and hold up in quick succession to start running. But the timing has to be very precise, and even during my second playthrough, I never found it particularly reliable. The combat system is also very clunky. After selecting the fight option in your inventory, you hold down space to engage. You can then use the arrow keys to either slap the monster or kick it. I prefer the latter because of the higher range. Speaking of range, Miss Hartwood's kicks seem a bit shortcoming. At least I had more problems with KOing zombies. But no matter which of the two you choose, you should be prepared for a fiddly affair. If the opponent hits you first, the whole fight can be over before it even starts, thanks to being stun-locked. And right in the beginning, you are put to the test. You see, your horror trip begins in the attic of Derceto, and before you have even time to figure out the controls, a monster will jump through the window. Where have I seen that before? Actually, you are supposed to block the window with a shelf and also push the chest over the hatch so that a zombie doesn't emerge afterwards. But you know what? Fuck that. We will just kick the living shit out of these monsters because I have other plans. And after dealing with these peasants, you are immediately awarded with a shotgun. Unfortunately, the guns aren't really any more reliable. Since there is no auto-aiming, your shots can miss easily. But to make things even more complicated, some enemies here are invulnerable or can only be destroyed in specific ways. For example, you can kick the rats in the wine cellar, which even shows some blood splashes, but you can't defeat them. And the spiders in the garden can't be trampled on either. But larger specimens like this one here can then be shot over. Good luck figuring this out. And of course, the level of difficulty here is very demanding. After all, they had to make up for the meager playtime. Death is always around the corner. You can get killed by fighting the wrong monster, running across the wrong floor, looking at the wrong paintings, opening the wrong door, or my favorite, reading the wrong book. I'm not kidding. But you know what? Just watch this shit on your own. I'm really at a loss for words.
Domine invocatoris, si non sanctificatus es cave. De vernis mysteriis non absolvo folem legendum fatum et eum versus. Tibi magnum innominandum signa stellarum nigrarum et
Where I'm also a bit lost for words is the inventory system. You see, your items are sorted chronologically in a list. The newest one comes to the top, and over time this list will become very crowded. So you will have to scroll back and forth until you find the right one to use. There's also a maximum limit of items that you can carry with you. The thing is, you also collect a lot of garbage that you don't need at all. For example, all the books you find can be discarded after reading them. And unlike in RE, the game does not tell you that you no longer need the key. You will have to figure that out for yourself. As a result, Derceto quickly turns into a complete garbage dump, which I found quite amusing. But there's more. Let's briefly discuss the unnecessarily elaborated healing system. In the game, you will find first aid kits. Someone will now think that you can use those to heal yourself, which the answer is yes and no. When you use the kit, it is simply opened and you will receive a potion. You can then use that potion to gain additional health. The emphasis is on additional because you don't really heal yourself. You simply gain health points on top of what you already have. So there is no reason not to use these things whenever you find one. But here is the catch. Both items will remain in your inventory after use. These are not automatically disposed of. You must throw them away yourself. Why? I have no idea. You might have a better hand with adventure games than I do, but I was in need for a walkthrough to figure out what to do with all these cursed items. How am I supposed to know you can throw the vase on the floor to get a key? There would probably be an option to examine it in other games, but whatever. Or how about shooting a painting with an arrow? That seems logical. It actually started off quite well, if I can say so. I was able to master the upper hallway entirely on my own. The key was reading a book about some Greek heroes with shiny swords that reflect and drive away demons. And do you know what also reflects? A goddamn mirror. Well, I was a little proud when I figured that out by myself. Though the rest was a complete disaster. So there is this room full of zombies which I massacred in my first run while taking some injuries. But you are supposed to handle the situation in a different way. The zombies can be tamed by giving them some food, but you know what's even better? The room is totally optional and you can ignore it completely. WTF. In another example, you have to fight against the pirate. Don't ask why. He is immune to your firepower, enemy logic, and can only be destroyed with your sword. But that's easier said than done because he just blocks your attack every time, so it doesn't even seem like this is supposed to be the solution. But it is. You need to drive him into a corner so that he gets stun locked. What a great game design. There was also my encounter with a ghost that suddenly morphed into a weird glitch cloud and chased me through the whole house. I don't know if getting rid of this thing is even possible, so I hid out upstairs. But when I went back down later, I just got ripped apart during the walking animation. As you can probably see for yourself, the graphics have aged like milk. While the pre-rendered backgrounds can still look okay, the primitive 3D models simply took me out of the game whenever I stared at them. Especially your main character is something to behold. Not only that, it can also happen quite often that you get stuck somewhere or even clips through the background. The jumping passages were particularly annoying. Luckily, they only appear towards the end of the game, but you can never really tell where you will land. Why they even came up with the idea of incorporating platforming into a survival horror title with tank controls remains a mystery to me. But the primitive engine still has something going on compared to Resident Evil. Here you don't see a door animation that leads to nothing whenever you want to enter a room. The whole adventure can be enjoyed seamlessly and without loading sequences, which also means that zombies can follow you around the house. As for the sound design, it's just as primitive as the graphics. The game likes to play scary sound effects in the background, like the howl of a wolf, which becomes very annoying after a short while. The music isn't worth mentioning either and is pretty generic. Only the end credit music stood out a bit for me. And that is Alone in the Dark, an ancient survival horror title, and unfortunately that's exactly how it plays. I can only recommend this game to die-hard fans of the genre. The cheap deaths and inadequate controls were just too much for me. Overall, it felt more like playing an alpha version of Resident Evil. Apparently, they are making a remake of this, so I'm very intrigued by how it will turn out in the end. If you ask me, this is a perfect candidate for a remake, and it looks like it will be much more than just a graphic update. Seriously, why do you want to recreate games that are already good or even masterpieces? It is way more interesting to see bad or mediocre games getting a second chance and hopefully turning them into something good. And with that, thank you for watching everyone, and until next time.
Of monstrosity. You who read me know that night engenders monsters and that night creatures exist. The accursed book of Abdul al-Hazred is clear on this matter. That is not dead which can eternal lie. Unhappy he who knows that book. Unhappy he whose eyes alight upon that foulest of texts. Unhappy he who implores the standing stones, for he will free the powers of darkness.